Teachers of Reddit who have had students become millionaires, what were they like in your classroom? Jeff Bezos was in my mom's high school graduating class. He was valedictorian. She didn't really have anything else remarkable to say about him. What makes rich people rich is boring. Working 60 hours a week at the equivalent of 15 an hour while living in a trailer park from the age of 18 to 65 would make you have an 8-figure net worth if you invested half your paycheck. When you put it that way, I should take my chances robbing a bank. I am an economics teacher in high school and I've had two of which I know. One was always a computer data type of boy, nerdy on one hand but he had quite a big mouth on him. Became some data expert at an investment bank. The other boy was more of the entrepreneurial, no idea if that is an English word, type. He started a recruiting business for high-tech companies which became pretty large. That boy is annoying as FCK to deal with as a teacher. Way too smart for his class. Therefore bored. Therefore an absolute little monster. Not unfriendly though. My mom went to school with Queen Latifah. She supposedly came into the gym and rapped some days. I missed a P on that word and was horrified for a second. It's Queen Latifah, not Cardi B. What does B stand for? I went to school with a girl who is now a multi-millionaire with her own makeup range. She was a bully. Everyone hated her. She was so nasty to everyone around her, including teachers. But now everyone's falling over themselves to tell her how amazing she is. I still don't like her. I refuse to buy her products. There's no way I'm putting my money in her pockets after everything she did to us all. Edit. Sorry, I won't ever name who it is. She is a legit businesswoman who has worked her way up from the bottom. As much as I don't like her, I wouldn't do that to her. My mom's friend's husband taught Steve Jobs. He was apparently very arrogant and a huge douche. He's more down to earth now. An apple a day didn't quite do the trick. Idiot tried to cure cancer with beet smoothies. Can't say he's all that smart. A couple of things. The vast majority of millionaires are not publicly known as such. And for that reason very few teachers would actually know which of their students ever became one. Being a millionaire today is not what being a millionaire was 30 years ago. They are everywhere and are far from the jet-setting stereotypes we like to think of them as. A complete a-hole who actually was referred to school psychiatrist on suspicion of sociopathy. Fast forward about 7 years. And he has run what amounts to a pyramid scheme. Scamming about $6 million of mostly elderly. Only had to repay some of it, including court expenses of his accusers. Because he had acted in good faith. Still cannot figure this out. But good faith is not a word I believe the students knows. Went to school with an absolute genius. Super nice and down to earth and we all knew he was bound for greatness in curing cancer or something like that. Sure enough. He's loaded and has his own biomedical research team. Great guy. The world is a better place with him in it. We recently had a school reunion and I was bummed that he couldn't be there. You sound like a great person too. The way you describe him and talk about him like that. You don't seem close to him but you are talking about him in a nice and admirative kind of way. Good for you for being able to recognize the greatness in the word. The world is surely a better place with you in it too. Not a teacher-student post. But I went to high school with a former Major League Baseball player and current manager. He was a senior when I was a freshman. He was a pretty cool guy and would sometimes play intramural softball with us on Fridays after school. Didn't seem like an ass or anything. I saw him some years later at a local event and got his autograph, while briefly discussing our old high school. Still very down to earth and personable. My future college roommate also played Little League with him, I eventually came to find out. Small world. I'm not a teacher, but I went to school with a current NHLer. He's definitely a millionaire now. He was rarely actually in class. Most of the time he was out training. And when he was in class he always cheated on tests. He was one of my good friends until he did something really stupid that would have got him expelled. Luckily I had a pristine academic record and took the fall for him. I just ended up getting 2 weeks of detention for it. Truth is, I was in love with him and just didn't want him to fail. Didn't even get so much as a thank you from him. Every time I see him play I smile though. He probably doesn't even remember my name. In Ontario, Canada, we apparently have an underground city near our nation's largest airbase, CFB Trenton. I believe it was made in Defenbrook era when nuclear weapons were a plausible risk. Maybe someone else could chime in that has more info. I think you commented in the wrong thread. A childhood friend from around the corner and her brother are now worth around 70 million. Plus she won a gold medal at the Commonwealth Games. We had great fun climbing trees as kids. Went to school with a guy who just seemed to be lucky at all the right times. Things just always went his way. He worked as hard as the rest of us. But none of us hit the same breaks. You know. He'd intern somewhere and end up getting a Lotus as a company car because it was the only thing left in the motor pool. We all knew something would bring him down to our level eventually. Yep. Now he's a millionaire who rescues startups in need of financial rediscovery. Honestly. Nice dude. Not the most down to earth. But he was trying. Really changed my perspective on success. I went to school with a boy who was typical of my redneck area. He was mouthy, bossy, couldn't sit still, talked constantly, liked trucks, etc. He was quite disruptive in the classroom. He is now a very, very rich man. Still lives here part-time. I never see him, but I do hear his ridiculous car from time to time that he has to drive in low gear due to speed limits. That's how I know he is here for a visit. No one really knows how he got so rich. I expect he talked his way into it somehow. He could throw a baseball really fast. How fast? Really? JoJo was in my homeroom in JR High. Her locker was actually next to mine as well. We all knew she was talented. She wasn't popular though. She definitely wasn't regarded as one of the pretty hot ones either. She did seem a bit pompous though. Yair days. Jojo Rabbit? Jojo Gomez? Jojo Tua? Jojo Simmons? Which Jojo? I taught a future NFL player. He was built like a brick shithouse. Was extraordinarily polite, kind, and thoughtful. He'd sit with the lonely kid at lunch. He was never late, in fact. He was always early. Straight A's. He was determined to be the best. Good looking. Well spoken. Every parent's dream. If anything. He was very cocky. But he could be. Because he was the best at everything he did. It literally annoyed me that he was so perfect. He went on to be drafted by the Patriots. He won 2 Super Bowls with them. He's still built like a brick shithouse. He married a gorgeous woman. Has a beautiful family. Made boatloads of cash. Retired from the NFL. And now runs charities. He's one of the kindest, sharpest guys I've ever met. Still annoys me. My aunt taught Rainn Wilson in high school. He was in the same class as the guy that wrote Frindle. Andrew Clements. Man, I loved his work as a kid. My mother is a high school English teacher, and she was telling me about a past student of hers the other day. His name was Ryan, and he was always on his phone. Everyone is on their phone a lot, but this kid was to the point where it was normal to kick him out of the class for not paying attention. Well, in 2017 he dropped out when Bitcoin hit its peak and now has $3 billion. Allegedly he had been in the Bitcoin game since 2012. He is now living comfortably in the Cayman Islands. I don't know if this counts, but recently the father of one of my students won $1 million off a scratch ticket. This was a family living paycheck to paycheck, and often spent their summers living at campsites because it's cheaper than rent. Oftentimes his only real meal was the free lunch he got at the cafeteria. His dad is using the money to buy a house. And since day one my student has been way more focused. He's turning in his work and just seems so much happier. I am a teacher now, but I went to high school with Heath Ledger. He was a few years above me. He was already in TV shows and commercials when we were at school, so we as juniors already thought he was super cool. I remember he was charming, affable and popular, but also a really lovely guy. One time I was at an end-of-season rowing party held by the seniors. I was younger than all of them but rowed in our second eight, so I scored an invite. I got far too drunk and ended up put under some bushes in the front yard. On his way out with his GF, he stopped and checked on me. When we realized I was a boarder, he knew I'd be toast if I didn't get back by morning, so he and his GF took me in a car back to school. Such a great bloke. So sad to hear how it all ended up. I worked with Drake's kindergarten teacher. Apparently he was a little shit. Was he in a wheelchair yet? Or was that in high school? Most kids are, though. My mom was asked in high school by the president, or something like that, of Key Bank, and she turned him down. I hope he was in high school too, lol. Imagine how different your life would have been. Well, I guess it won't be you. They were utterly unremarkable. Except that they were born rich. Oh, I would like to learn how to be born rich. That would make my life so much easier. Just reincarnate, bro. Not a teacher, but went to high school with a guy that became a very successful Elvis impersonator. Does that count? Edit. Forgot to actually answer the question. He was one of the smartest, most well-mannered guys of our class. He was nice to everyone, not just the popular people he was surrounded by. He was a great performer and worked very hard at everything he did. Just because he knew from a young age that's what he wanted to do in life didn't stop him from succeeding in his education. Founder of YouTube went to a high school I had friends at, about 15 minutes south from here, said he was nice, but didn't know him well. Not a teacher. My junior year of high school, my locker was right next to this girl who always wore stupid knee-high socks with short skirts. She had horribly bleached blonde hair and a funny nose. Normally I wasn't such a jerk about physical appearances, but her nose was always up in the air and she seemed to have an undeserved sense of self-importance. A few years later I saw her on TV. After she married Hugh Hefner. She hadn't changed. She was still wearing those stupid socks.